What's up, everybody? My name is Craig,
And I'm Aaron.
and we are the Heroic
Yeah.
Reality, and today we'll be talking about Season 2 of Flash.
And a little bit of Arrow in there, too.
Yeah, so as a whole, we're going to recap a little bit of the first season and just briefly summarize it, and then we'll go and talk about really what happened in Season 2 with Barry and how different factors in his first two seasons affected the season finale.
First season wise, that's like... So I don't know if you know this, but I was watching a video yesterday. It was like the 107 Facts About Flash. And it's from the guy who does the Comic Historian, dude, Benny from Comic Historian. And he pointed out the fact that the first, like the pilot episode is the, for the Flash, for season 1, was the most watched episode and like most watched pilot since the Vampire Diaries. And it was like 6.6 million people. And I think that in itself, yeah, it was like 6.6 million people who watched that
That's
pilot
crazy.
episode. Yeah. That in itself just shows how like well done the show was, I guess, because people didn't turn it off immediately. Like, freaking loved it. And now, all in all, the first season, in my personal opinion, was just absolutely wonderful and better than every season Arrow has had.
Okay, to be honest though, I didn't even start watching even season 1 of Flash until halfway through March of 2016 this year. So I watched season 1 and season 2 within the past 2-3 months, whatever it's been. So I wasn't part of those 6 million, unfortunately.
6 million. It was a pretty great time, if I'm gonna be honest here. But yeah, like, it's like, I don't know, it's just, I feel like Flash is done. They do so many things so well, but at the same time, they've had some like parts that are a little bit lacking. Like, there's been some emotion. It hasn't been as emotionally driven as it could have been in certain aspects of like the first season. The second season did tremendously better, but like with the death of Barry's mother in the first season, I never really like felt anything for that, because like, you know what's gonna happen, so it's not, you shouldn't really, but like there should still be some feels in there, like, hey, oh no, his mom's dead, but like, I don't know. They did better with it though in the Runaway Dinosaur episode. I had feels for that in season 2.
So even though we said that we were going to briefly summarize season 1, we haven't done that yet, so I'm going to do that right now. So season 1, Barry's mother dies. Surprise, surprise. And then throughout the season, we learn who the Reverse Flash was pretty early on. And then throughout the season, towards the end of the season actually, Barry kind of figures it out. Even though there was like a mid-season, reveal to some of the characters, and then Barry time traveled because Barry could do that.
Hooray!
And then he started not having trust with Harrison Wells, surprisingly again. Who was the Reverse Flash.
At least Barry's time travel makes way more sense than Superman's time travel. Like, Barry breaks the time barrier. Superman just spins around the Earth. Like, what the shit? Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so tangent right now. I saw a random video a long time ago, and it was, I don't know if it was Superman or if it was Flash, but instead of running in the same direction as the Earth is spinning, either Superman or Flash was flying in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it was Superman. It was in one of the movies they made. Yeah, it was like, oh, Superman's got a new power, I guess. I mean, it's not like he has enough already.
True. Okay, back to Flash. So, at the season finale of season 1, this is where we're going to really start kind of like diving in. There was the huge battle with Harrison Wells and, kind of defeating the Reverse Flash and trying to get back to normal. However, in the whole thing that happened when they did that, they created essentially a wormhole between universes, dimensions.
Which is called the Singularity, for those of you who are wondering. That's what they called it in the TV show.
Yeah. So it's also called a wormhole in real life.
It was a singularity in the show.
So throughout season 2, we saw pretty much almost all the villains came through that singularity from Earth 2.
And they were sent by Zoom, for those of you who are wondering. And Zoom is the main antagonist in the season 2 of Flash. And when the singularity opened, he learned that there was a Flash on Earth 1. So Zoom is from Earth 2, and then he sent a bunch of villains from Earth 2 to go kill Flash. And obviously they don't do it because he's the Flash and they suck. And then Zoom now has to take things into his hands by traveling to Earth 2 and fucking shit up.
Pretty much. Also, we feel as though whenever all those villains were coming through, in the first episode, there was a character that came in through, Jay Garrick, as, some of them people might know of the original quote-unquote Flash, but more of that later. But, he pretty much said early on, Zoom is, your main villain. You need to be scared of him. You need to fight him, type of thing. Whatever it was.
You need to be faster than him was one of the main points they were dragging across. And then by the time Harrison Wells gets brought into Earth 2...
Yay, surprise, Earth 2 Harrison Wells.
Yeah, Earth 2 Harrison Wells, yeah. He's actually a good guy, and everything he does is for his daughter. Ooh, she's pretty hot.
Well, I don't think necessarily he's straight a good guy. I mean, by the end of the season, yeah.
I think the only good person in the show is probably Caitlin.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Cisco's he's nice and all, but I feel if need be, he would totally just turn dark side.
Maybe Joe West.
Joe, yeah, he is for those of you who don't know, he's never been in the comics, never was, probably never will be, except for the 0 year. I don't know if he was in Flash 0 year, the one that was supposed to be between the pilot episode and the second episode, but he's completely made up character for the TV show, so they essentially can just do whatever the hell they want to do with him, which is pretty great.
Honestly, one of the best characters in my opinion of the show.
And I think the main reason is because the guy who plays him, I don't remember his name, but he was in Rent. He's an amazing singer. Ooh, love that guy.
Oh my
He's so good at acting.
I saw, just again, tangents, a random YouTube video. It just popped up for some reason that was the cast of Flash singing, and I'm like, is it a gag reel that they were all singing? No, it's every single one of them has a music video or something out, or they're just really talented singers. And I'm just like, what the hell? So, yeah, going back, first episode, we meet Jay Garrick, who turns into being Zoom, as we learn halfway through the season. When I was, binge watching, because that's what I do, there was a few times whenever Jay would, say something in a weird kind of way, and the cameras would be, making him seem pretty evil. There was just a couple of shots, and I can't, think of any one particular moment off the top of my head besides just a few just different shots where he was saying, do not fight Zoom, and he has this kind of smirk on his face. Just throughout that, they did hint at it, and then once the final reveal of whenever Cisco, I mean, we knew Jay was Zoom before, but whenever Cisco touches the helmet,
yeah, when he vibes off of that,
that reveal was actually really emotional because they made Jay Garrick, a really good, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hero. He was a main. Yeah. He was a good just protagonist. And then I think a lot of what has to go with that was if it was any other actor, in my personal opinion, it would not have been anywhere near as powerful as a performance. And then same with Grant Gustin, because when he gets the hint that it was that Jay is Zoom, and he goes over there and just breaks the glass holding the helmet, just shatters it. It's just holy, he's pissed.
Oh yeah.
Betrayed again by the person he holds dear. He was first betrayed by Harrison. Well, it wasn't Harrison. It was Eobard Thawne in season 1, who was posing as Harrison Wells, his idol, and he was betrayed by him, turning out to be Reverse Flash. And then he brings in Jay, and then Jay is being his idol now, and they're just getting really close. And then just gets betrayed by Jay again. And it's getting to the point where I'm starting to. He probably doesn't know if he can trust anyone anymore, other than obvious those that are really, really close to him. But it's just.
I mean, soon we'll find that Joe West is some evil bad guy that's just gonna stab Barry in the back, and the show's just gonna be what the fuck.
Well, the initial dad, Iris's initial dad, in one version of the comics, was a terrible person, and he would,
Really?
he would beat her and stuff, and then he'd beat her brother, who would then become the New 52's version of Reverse Flash. I think is who. I don't know if he was Reverse Flash, but he was a villain for Flash, and so their dad was really evil. So, but the fact that this is Joe West and it's a completely new character, strictly for the TV show, I don't think they'd ever have to go into that realm. I mean, they could, but with Earth made him hate Barry because now Iris is a detective and all that jazz. So,
Yeah. What if also just like randomly Caitlin just turns straight Killer Frost? Like
she's
Earth
had no
One.
like full powers and everything because she's had no signs of that even remotely. I mean, Vibe's clearly getting his reverb powers kicking in, which is great.
Yeah. So obviously there's a huge fight in the middle of the season where Zoom breaks Barry's back and like kind of leaves him somewhat paralyzed, but because of Barry's, super speed and healing factor type of thing, because his body just moves so fast, it only takes him a couple of days, and even though he's in this relationship with Patty, which honestly my personal favorite of the relationships, I'd rather see him and Patty together because they had so much more in common, or it just seemed like a better couple than Barry and Iris.
Yeah, the girl who plays Patty too is a superb actress. Her name's Chantel Van Satin or something like that. I don't remember, but I feel like the chemistry between her and Grant, to like just in general, you could clearly see that like that was a perfect pairing, character wise, acting wise.
Yeah. Oh, also in the I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. We'll cut that out. No.
So you go into like the Patty's relationship, and then like I feel like relationship wise, I don't think Barry should be with anyone else, especially in my personal opinion, Iris, because like I just despise Iris on the show. Like comic wise, I've always loved her, but when it comes to the TV show, I just hate her. I think she's one of the most annoying characters on the show. Like she whines constantly. She's gotten a little better towards the end of season 2, but she's always just like screwing with Barry for one, and then when Barry confesses her feelings, she's like, no, I don't love you, and then like her Eddie dude dies, and she's like, I love Barry, but I can't tell him, and I'm like, just it really annoyed the living crap out of me, just her character in general, and no, I don't know. I just wish Patty wouldn't have left. Why'd she leave?
I think also, even though that Patty's and Barry's relationship did come to an end, the send off for it, I felt was really good. It was really respecting Patty as a character and just like how smart she is, and that the fact that she was a detective and figured out that Barry was the Flash.
And then the way the whole thing with the train was pretty amazing too. How she knew that if I text Barry the Flash is going to come, and that's how I know he's the Flash. It's just like.
Yeah, she found out for sure one way or another, but also, it just really made her a stronger character than someone that needs to be told, or someone that really has to be protected by him instead of can protect themselves.
And then back to Zoom breaking Barry's back. I think that was a extremely crucial moment to season 2, because not only does it show the power of Zoom, like he's like, dude, he just conquered Earth 2, he's coming into Earth 1, he sent all these villains after you, he's really powerful in general, but now the fact that he can come in, and then what led up to that though, what I thought was probably one of the cool scenes in the movie, when Barry throws a lightning bolt and Zoom jumps up, catches it, and throws it right back at Barry, was just freaking beautiful. Like honestly,
it's one of those moments where I wonder if Captain America: Civil War took that moment and used it for the motorcycle scene, because it was pretty close.
Well, yeah, the whole motions of it and all.
Yeah.
I got you.
I mean, I think Flash did it better, but
of course. I mean, it was all CGI in Flash, a little less CGI in Civil War, but that's because they have a bigger budget.
Yeah.
But then that was just power. It showed like all of Zoom's power though. Like he just destroyed Flash, and then he shows it off to everyone too, being like, "Guys, this guy can't save you. I'm gonna take over this entire place, and get ready, because I'm gonna kill all you mother truckers."
And just the fact that Barry tried his best, and he made a way that they would both be eagle by running up the building and then falling at terminal velocity. You know, where they have to be going at the same speed because physics won't have it any other way.
Still loses, even though they're doing that.
Exactly. It just shows really how much better Zoom was from Barry. And obviously we kind of talked about Zoom's true identity and how that happened, but just like that moment in the season when Barry smashes the glass, like you just don't think that he's going to be able to trust anybody again, and that really, I think, is what really dictated his main final action at the end of the season, because it's just like, I can't keep trusting anybody, so I'm going to trust myself and only myself. And he becomes a little selfish.
And like, so I think one of the things that made him learning Zoom's, I personally feel like it was probably more traumatizing for him learning Zoom's true identity than learning Reverse Flash, because with Reverse Flash he was just attacking Barry. He wasn't really ever going after anybody else. It was really only ever Barry. And but with Zoom he was just killing everyone and just absolutely probably one of the worst people he's ever met. And he saw that even further and further as Zoom took over Central City when he like took in the police station, and then he had them all sitting inside jitters and snapped everyone's head and snapped everyone's neck. Well, that was after he learned Zoom's identity, which, by the way, that scene was sexy AF. But it's just like, I feel like it just, so he learned Zoom's identity after Zoom had killed all these people, taken over Earth 2, just done horrible things, and then Zoom comes back to Earth 1 and then just kills even more people, takes over Central City, and I think that just like shoves the knife even harder into Barry's back and just sort of like screws him over. And I don't know, it's gonna be hard for him to recover from all that.
Exactly.
So that's why he ran back in time.
Now to both of our favorite episode, The Runaway Dinosaur. In that episode, we both kind of saw him. This is one of the things that we were talking about before that really sparked us to start up this podcast.
Sparked. Hey, because he touches Jesse and
So, we were talking about, how they recreated the particle accelerator to try and give Barry his powers back because he lost them, because he gave them to Zoom, because Zoom literally captured Caitlin and would, he could have killed everybody. Or no, it was Wally he captured.
Yes.
He could have killed him, and Barry has this, almost brotherly fond of him, especially seeing how, like, he was raised by Joe. It's Joe's son. It's Iris's brother,
I feel like it's more than that, though, because of the kind of person Barry is, even if it was just some random person in Central City, he would have still given up his powers to save the person if there was no other way to, like, because he wouldn't just let someone die. But I feel like that made it even more personal for him was because he took Wally.
Yeah. But after that they tried to give Barry his powers back, and Barry kind of went zap and went bye-bye.
Consumed by the Speed Force. That was one of the cool scenes, I have to point out. Like, overall, these past two seasons, that was probably one of like most graphically well done moments.
It was hard to watch a little bit, just like how, like, because at that point I didn't know kind of like what they were going to be doing after that. Because whenever, like, I think that was episode.
That was right before Runaway Dinosaur, so that was episode 8? 7 or 8. One of those two.
No.
No, like, sorry, 20 or 21.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think it was episode 20.
So 20?
Either 19 or 20, I think. God damn it. I swear we will cut these out one time, but not today.
Not today. No.
But
so he gets consumed by the Speed Force, and then which leads us to the next episode being mine and yours personal favorite episode of all time, and probably my favorite episode of like most TV shows that have ever been out, The Runaway Dinosaur, where he's sitting there talking to the Speed Force, has to catch himself, but in reality the Speed Force is just taking up the forms of everybody he loves. It becomes Iris at one point, it's his dad, and then it's Joe, and in the very end that just last moment with when the Speed Force just decides to be his mom is one of the most emotional moments from the entire show.
Yeah, I mean, you've always heard that Barry's just like he misses his mom, obviously, because she died almost right in front of him, but not really because Barry saved himself because weird time travel shit that nobody understands. So just like always hearing about his mom, how his mom died, and then him actually getting that moment to really talk to his mom, whether it be the Speed Force or be his real mother. Speed Force being a thing just like time, just like gravity, just like mass. It's something that's nature is there, which I thought that was a really good way of explaining it. And writers Zach Stentz and director Kevin Smith of that episode did a wonderful job. And
praise be unto Kevin Smith. Just gonna put that out there. Praise be.
So, also during that episode, when they weren't, talking about Barry in the Speed Force or showing Barry in the Speed Force, there was a scene at the West household where Wally came downstairs and
that was the episode afterwards, I think, actually.
No, it was the same episode.
It was the same?
It was the same
Oh, yeah,
episode.
because the particle accelerator goes off that episode. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. So, Joe drops his mug right in front of Wally, just, kind of, because Wally got hit by the particle accelerator, along with Jesse. Wally woke straight back up. Jesse, however, stayed in a coma for a little bit.
I think it was like 2 days or a day, something like that.
It was whenever Barry got back.
Keep in mind, though, Joe dropped the mug on purpose because, for those who don't know, he thought that since Barry got hit with the particle accelerator and had speed, he thought he thought Wally might have something, so he purposefully dropped that mug.
And you mentioned to me, and I didn't realize it the first time that I watched it, and I'm giving you all the credit for this one.
Yeah.
That whenever Joe dropped the mug, the camera and the mug started falling in slow motion. Go back and watch the episode. I did. It's there.
Time slows down it is for specifically Wally. It's not like everybody time's slowing down. They go to Wally as it happens, and Wally's like, the hell? Because it just drops slowly. Because he notices it all. It's sort of like what happened with Barry in the first couple episodes when he's sitting in jitters and then the girl falls and then he just sees everything moving in slow motion, like all the trays and everything flying into the air. And he's just like, whoa.
They're not going to put it in as slow motion as it would be for Barry because, they're not wanting to get straight into Wally West Flash right now.
Yeah.
They might veer off into that, but, they're wanting the show to be called The Flash, not
The Flashes.
Yeah. So, and also with Jesse Quick, whenever Barry comes back, he kind of
Which is Jessie Wells at the moment. She doesn't have speed yet that we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
they didn't really show anything specifically of her having speed, but other than the fact that she was in the coma exactly like Barry was, they thought she was dead. But then the one thing that you would notice is when Barry comes up and he touches her hand, you get that little lightning bolt spark between him and her, which just leads you to believe, hey, she's got her powers now too.
Even Barry was they were kind of questioning him, and he's like, I guess it's just the Speed Force.
He's like, I felt it, I knew it. But
yeah.
One thing that annoyed me, though, which I agree, the cast was they pointed out, though, in the show, so it annoyed me a little bit less, but Barry was just getting all too cocky after having that experience with the Speed Force, because the Speed Force is like, yo, we're on your side, Zoom is terrible, you need to stop him. So he's like, guys, we've got the Speed Force on our side, we're never going to lose, and that's never a good thing to say. You're going to die.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between confident Barry and then cocky Barry.
That seemed a little of both.
It did. Barry had confidence, but he got too cocky.
Especially especially he's always had confidence, but the moment the Speed Force said, "Hey, dude, we want you to win," he's like, "Oh, I'm the best." Essentially, is how it played out for me.
Yeah. Cue song. I'm the best around. All right.
No one's gonna ever take you down.
So, that cockiness, I feel, is really what led to, they had small victories. All of a sudden, Zoom shows up.
And
takes.
keep in mind though, before this though, they were sitting at a family dinner, like it was with Barry's dad, Iris, Wally, everybody. They're happy. They're like, we're doing
Even the
this.
lady from Mercury Labs was
Yeah,
there.
who little
Because
daddy Alan was smitten with, and they're just sitting there. It's just like family, peace and quiet. You're like, finally they get to relax.
and then in comes Zoom and takes.
Takes
Wow.
Barry's dad. And then he takes Barry's dad to, not only does he just take him, but he takes him to the house where Barry's mother died in, and to the exact same spot. And he tells him that now you can become like me, because for those of you who don't know, when Zoom was younger, his dad murdered his mom in front of him, like made him watch. Whereas for Barry, he didn't have to watch his mom die; he was taken out last second, and that's why Zoom thinks Barry is so different from him. And he thinks that if Barry has this one moment where he watches his father die, he watches his loved one die, that he will finally turn and become exactly like him. So he takes his dad when they're feeling all happy and peaceful, and then he just vibrates his hand through his heart.
And season finale time.
It's pretty bad.
So, I watched the season finale, and then obviously I knew a little bit of kind of like what some rumors were about what season 3 is going to be, and that it's going to really mirror Flashpoint, the Flashpoint paradox.
Ridiculously, which is, I don't know, because like I don't think the one reason I feel like exactly what Barry did. So he went back in time at the very end of the episode after beating Zoom. He went back in time and stopped his mother from dying. And then as he did that, he looked in through the door that opened from Barry's bedroom, that like season 1 Flash you saw when he went to go stop his mom originally. And then Flash said, "Don't do it." He sees that version of himself disappear. So season 1 Barry disappears. And but like the one reason I think they won't go if they do it, they won't go full-fledged Flashpoint, is because Warner Bros., CW, they would never let one show dictate the universes of 3 other shows, because it's going to affect Supergirl too. And I feel like that's going to be the biggest problem with them doing that.
Would it affect Supergirl though?
Well, now that it's coming to CW, I'm pretty sure it will.
Yeah, because there was that one episode crossover. Then technically, whatever her name is, because I haven't watched Supergirl at all.
Kara L.
Yeah, she would have never met him for that one episode. But I mean, I don't think that it would affect that too much, because they explained that it was a completely different, multiverse. That was a different Earth there.
Unless what they're doing currently is this is how they set up bringing Supergirl into the universe now. Because if you notice from the New 52 was created because of the Flashpoint paradox, and like everything that happened before is erased and came up with all this new crap, which would be terrible because Arrow's about to be in its 5th season, and that would just get rid of everything that Arrow had, and then you just completely just disregard everything that happened in the first 2 seasons of Flash, the first season of Legends of Tomorrow. It's not a good idea to do. But if they have it like just like little tiny little hints of Flashpoint going on here and there, blah blah blah, whatever, then they could finally, I think they could actually have a reason to have Supergirl in the same universe then.
What if instead of, it affecting all the other shows, they still have that same timeline, but Barry just goes missing, kind of, because he goes back in time. So it would be that same exact timeline. Barry goes back in time, saves his mother, and then he's dealing with the Flashpoint paradox by himself.
And then in each and then they could do the crossover episodes where you have like him and Arrow, and you can see it. But the problem with that, though, is because when you look at the actual Flashpoint, for those of you who don't know, he goes back in time, saves his mom, and it changes everything. Aquaman and Wonder Woman hate each other. They're waging war in Europe, destroying the Earth, essentially. Bruce Wayne died, not his dad. His dad becomes Batman. All this crazy crap happens. That's just
Batman's
completely
shooting a bunch of people.
Yeah, Batman uses guns and knives, and he stabs Reverse Flash through the heart with a knife. And then, but like, at the same time, Barry loses his powers. And he slowly starts like losing all of his memories from before Flashpoint, and then like he obviously fixes it fast enough, but they've already done the whole thing with Barry getting his powers back. If they do this Flashpoint, he shouldn't have his powers, and that means that he would never have met Arrow, and that there would be no reason for a crossover, even though they said strictly they're going to do a crossover every single season, which is like, this is when complications come into hand. Like, what the?
Well, it might be like a quarter season, kind of arc, or just like something somewhat small, because they set it up in a way that they have to go through with this in a way, like, because okay, I'm gonna go through kind of like a theory that I heard, and in that and it was by a YouTuber named Emergency Awesome, I believe. Go check him out if you want to. He had a theory kind of about this next season of Flash, in that so we have yet to see the Barry that goes back in time to that night that goes and saves himself.
But in season
His
one,
younger self.
in season one, we did see the Barry that looked at, like, so when he came in through his bedroom door and like went to open the door to stop Reverse Flash the first time, we saw the Barry that stopped, looked at him, and told him no.
Exactly.
So we have seen that.
We've seen the Barry, like, and we haven't seen that Barry go back in time and, you know, what has happened all the way up till that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Barry that says no is the Barry that's going to be later in this upcoming season.
Or midway. I don't...
Yeah, in season 3, that's the Barry that's going to tell... God, this is so confusing and so meta.
Well, they have to create a new villain, though, because they can't just reuse Zoom or reuse Reverse Flash. While both of those were great characters, it'd sort of just be like, hey, guys, you know how we used this one character before, and he's basically useless now? Like, we've already done everything we could. We're going to do it again. And that's just... They'd have to introduce a new villain who's worse than Zoom.
Barry's going to be his own villain.
He's got to stop himself for the beginning. Yeah,
Exactly.
and then he's got to find himself, too, because if it actually goes as Flashpoint is, he's not going to have powers. He's going to need to figure out how to get his powers back, which means he's going to have to go to Wells, convince Wells, like, dude, I'm the Flash. Like, I need to get you my powers back. But then he needs to get the person to believe him, because in the comics, he goes to Batman. Batman believes him. He's like, okay, cool, let's get your powers back. Then he does the lightning bolt thing, gets struck by lightning, he gets burned alive, does it again, then he finally gets his powers back. But without that connection, unless he goes to Oliver Queen... But I don't know. Without that connection,
Oliver Queen's not smart enough to do that, or probably wouldn't believe him enough.
That's the thing, though, because like before Flash, Oliver had never seen anybody with superpowers. He'd seen people use magic, like Constantine, but he'd never seen anybody with powers. And you look at once Flash comes in, now he sees that people can have powers. They can have abilities, like super speed.
If you think about in Flashpoint, the Batman didn't see anybody that had super speed. He never met Superman.
Well, he never met super speed, but he met powers, though, because he knows Aquaman exists, he knows Wonder Woman exists, he knows that there's these heroes, but he's never known a Flash, because there's never been a speedster.
Yeah.
Or at least there hadn't been a speedster yet. And just, I don't know. This is like, it gets like, to a point, unless they want to introduce, I don't know if you're reading Rebirth at all, but
no, I have not.
For Flash Rebirth, the new villain they're putting in is like, so, because of what happened with Flashpoint, it created the Black Wally West, and then it got rid of the White Wally West, essentially. But what they're doing with Rebirth is that the White Wally West was never gone. He got like stuck in the Speed Force, just sort of what happened with Barry Allen, and he's trying to get out. And then it turns out that the reason all these stories got reset in New 52 is because their memories were wiped by this one person. And I haven't read far enough to know who it is yet, but they're introducing a new speedster that you see in the first issue of Flash, and it's Godspeed, and freaking cool as shit. I'm just gonna put that up there. Like his whole outfit and everything, he's like gold and white. He just looks amazing. And they just showed like a little snippet of him like running across outside of Barry's old house, and it's just like, if they could introduce Godspeed, I know it's really early on. They don't really have much material on him to like really pull off of, but there's got to be some villain who's worse than Zoom, and that's the only person who I can possibly think is worse than Zoom at this moment.
Well, I mean, also I don't think that they're going to do the same actor back-to-back seasons with Zoom and then the Black Flash, or the Black Race, or whatever he's called.
Oh, I learned recently that they're two different people. So he did turn into the Black Flash. For those of you who don't know, he was Zoom when he died. I don't know, not many people I talked to noticed it, but when he died and the time wraiths took him, because the way the Black Flash looks like, we could put it on the screen if we need to, but like his face is all like distorted and it looks like he sort of had like all life sucked out of him. It's like grilled to the bone and all wrinkly. But then, so Zoom initially had like the Black Flash logo, the Silver Flash logo, all that stuff. But as he's being taken by the time wraith, everything starts turning red on his ears and on his chest, and his face gets all wrinkled, and he ends up looking exactly like the Black Flash, which is the sort of the Reaper for speedsters, because in the comics the origin of the Black Flash is because the speedsters are so fast that they can outrun Death, and Death has no way to get them. So everybody must die, so he creates the Black Flash in order to capture these people. So whenever you see the Black Flash, if you're a speedster, it means you're going to die. and you either have to outrun them or you're dead. And the way eventually Barry in the comics, or I can't remember if it was Barry or Wally, the way he eventually gets is he just travels forward in the future like 2 seconds or 2 minutes or something like that. That's completely different. That's a different character. Never mind.
Yeah,
that's a different. That's the time. That's a, like. Just can keep going.
That was also in the season finale. Barry went backwards like 2 seconds in time. So they were
2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes.
No, it was 2 seconds.
It was 2 seconds. I could have sworn he said 2 minutes.
Either 2 seconds or 2 minutes. It was 2 something. It was not a very long amount of time. So there was essentially 2 Barrys running. One could save everybody, and one would sacrifice themselves.
Oh, yeah. So the one that sacrificed himself ran around the thingy to stop it from exploding. And then I thought that idea was cool, though. He got the time wraiths, so like the time wraiths wouldn't have come out at all, but Barry got them to chase him. And then he hoped that they'd go after the Zoom because of all the damage he's done, which was pretty both.
It really really boosted how Barry thought about taking care of different species that he can't outrun necessarily.
Although Zoom did tell him that, though. Remember, he says when Barry was initially confronting Zoom in that episode beforehand, Zoom came out of nowhere and killed himself, killed that version of himself, and he's like, until you're ready to kill yourself, you will never beat me. So Barry ends up doing that. He ends up killing himself to save everything, and then beats him. So it's like Zoom set up his own demise, essentially.
Yeah, and I think he even mentions that as he's kind of dying, almost saying that you used my own trick against me.
Yeah. So well done.
One last thing about the season 2 finale: the man in the iron mask being the real Jay Garrick, which a lot of people really assumed, but also it was the doppelganger from Earth 3, Henry Allen / Jay Garrick.
Which they actually hinted at that too, because remember when Barry was talking to his dad, and Dad's like, "Oh, my mother's maiden name was Garrick," so it's like, hey,
that's when everybody realized, hey,
you could be the Flash. But which is funny because he was the original Flash TV show in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember what it was. The guy who played Barry's dad played Barry Allen as the Flash, which is pretty hilarious that they did that. But yeah. And then it's pretty cute.
So going into a little bit of character discussion really quickly. So Barry, he developed a lot throughout the season. I mean, obviously, dealing with the singularity, he got really down on himself. He got up to almost too high of a high point, and then crashed down again, and then, ends up in this very awkward state where he doesn't know who to trust anymore. He can't even trust himself now. But he feels as though it's his duty to go back and save his mother, which it not necessarily was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole bunch of different emotions and stuff. And there was a tweet sent out by Grant Gustin, who's the actor that plays Barry, that after the writers already been working on season 3, and they're about to start filming season 3 in a month or two, and he talked to the writers, and the writers ended up telling him a couple of different things that's going to be happening with Barry, and he ended up tweeting. So Barry and I are on talking terms again, and I'm really excited for what's happening in season 3. So just getting that from Grant is really good news for me, because I'm kind of worried about how they're going to go with it, if Barry's going to still be down on himself, or if it's going to really mirror Flashpoint Paradox, where he's going to be like, oh, I fucked up.
I feel like, so first season I didn't really think Barry had that much progression. I mean, it was a little bit of progression, but it was just this first season. You don't expect a lot of character, oh, he's super strong now, but they did a lot better with it in season 2, which is as expected. But with the whole Flashpoint thing, I think what made it even harder to watch was for those of us who are comic fans, was being the comic fans. So you know what he's doing, you know what's going to happen. But if you think about it in terms of Barry, Flash doesn't exist in his world before him, so he doesn't know if I go back in time, I'm going to change everything. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's just kind of dazed, and it sort of makes it shows how Like, I think he would have been perfectly fine if his dad didn't die, and he would have been able to accept the fact that his mother died. But now that his dad's dead, his mom's dead, he can't change either of it. He just doesn't have anything to hold on to anymore. And while he loves Iris, as they point out so gracefully in the end of that episode, yay! He just, like, he doesn't feel like right, I guess is the way to say it. Like, he knows, like, he's empty, I guess is the word that you could use to describe it. Is just, you can see it thinking outside of the comics. Like, say I never read these, you can tell that deep down he's troubled. He feels like he's got nothing left. He can't really, like, there's nothing for him to really do, and he needs to change that. He needs to save his mom, or because he can't save his dad. And it's a little complicated.
And Iris, I don't think she really progressed at all. I think she's been the same character since day one of season one, besides the fact that she realized that Barry's Flash now. And it kind of annoyingly, it's almost kind of like a Mary Jane type thing for me, in the fact that, you know, yes, they love them, but because they're this superhero and they're doing all these amazing things, it makes them love them more, and it's what really keeps them together instead of, you know, just the true nature of the person that they're with.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Iris she's kind of a shell, a figure for Barry to love, and, you know, she just loves him for being the Flash instead of for necessarily being only Barry.
And they delved into that in season one too, because she was, like, deeply in love with the Flash. Like, she didn't openly admit it, but you could tell the way she was always talking about the Flash, talking to him, that she freaking, like, it was sort of like with Lois Lane and Superman. Lois Lane was always like, oh, Superman, and then you see that with Iris and Flash. But then it's the moment she learns he is Flash is when she starts to have feelings for him. Whereas Patty always said, Patty loved Barry. She loved Barry. She didn't care if he was a Flash, she didn't care if he wasn't. She just wanted him to be honest, as you find out when she finally leaves to go do that one thing. And she still loves Barry even after she finds out the Flash. She doesn't love him anymore. She doesn't love him any less. It's just like, he needs somebody who loves him for him. And then just like, and the fact that Iris doesn't change. She's the same person both seasons. One of my main reasons I do not like her character. It's just, I feel that might be writer's end. The reason why I don't like her could be the writer's fault, because I love her in the comics and she's awesome there. It's just not, I don't know, I can't, it just doesn't change. She's just the same person every single time.
So the writers of Flash season 3 make Iris her own standalone character, make her more independent, and we will all love you for it. Make her somehow redeem herself, for instead of just loving Flash Barry, love Barry instead.
Well, maybe, so if the Flashpoint does work out, then what happened in the comics was he was married to her too, still in the Flashpoint. So maybe now he's going to be with her, unless, since there's no Flash, he's not going to love Barry. But it's just the way it seemed.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Too much speculation. They ended that on a confusing note. Like, like they gave you, like, hey guys, this is Flashpoint, but guess what? You have no idea how we can even do Flashpoint because of the fact that this is a TV show connected to 3 other TV shows.
Exactly. CW, why do you do this? All right. So Jesse and Wally, they will probably be together.
Chemistry
eventually.
Galore. Holy crap.
Oh my god. The actors were just like on point with it too. Like, they were really working well with each other in subtle romantic type ways, and then, you know,
I guess this means
really
I can't text you on Earth too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, you can't. I don't know. Jesse's beautiful. Let's just say that. She's a beautiful lady. Wally's a lucky dude.
Anything else you want to talk about them besides the fact that they both might have almost the same powers?
Yeah, I mean, like, so who's quicker in the comics? Is it Wally West? Is he faster than Jesse Quick?
I do not know. I don't read DC Comics.
No, I don't know. Cause it seems like currently, though, he's getting his powers quicker than she is, which is ironic. Jesse Quick, wink. But like, we've seen more from him with powers as opposed to Jesse, unless there's a reason for that, because we're going to continue to see Wally, and Jesse's going to be on Earth too, so why does it matter? Maybe she's just going to come back one day with her dad on her arms, and like, oh, Barry, we need your help, just like running really fast in some like pink suit, red, I don't know what color, just a suit. That was sexist.
Yeah. Zoom. I think Zoom, whenever they were getting ready, or whenever they just did the reveal for Zoom, I didn't quite understand like what their thought process behind it was, how they were going to reason for how he did both Jay and Zoom, and then they discussed the time remnant, and it made sense. So they kind of dug themselves out of that hole. But
I feel like what helped though was because in season 2 when Reverse Flash came back, remember that? Because
yeah,
and he
that was
showed up. I think that was their way of discussing. He's like, well, how is he alive? Because Eddie killed himself, so how can he be who he is? And then they're like, well, that Eddie killed himself in that timeline. Well, the Reverse Flash travels through time, so he's in alternate times at certain periods. So therefore, you can't fully be killed unless you killed every single Reverse Flash that's running through time, which is nearly impossible.
Yeah, as in that this was the timeline, like going forward before Eddie killed himself.
Yeah.
This would still be the same time. It was just way ahead of whatever happened, and time is a very complex and weird thing to talk about.
And the Speed Force makes it even harder to understand.
Yeah, and I think, make it simpler. Just use normal physics.
Let's be honest here, though. The whole reason they made the Speed Force was so that they could get Barry out of situations that normal speedsters would never be able to get out of, because they could be like, oh, Barry's trapped in a corner surrounded by 87 people. Oh, he disappears. Why? Because he got consumed by the Speed Force. It's just like, we can't have him die, so we need some way to make up a way. And then plus it makes him really freaking overpowered because...
Well, I mean, Flash is probably one of the most powerful superheroes in all of comics. Like, just the fact that he can, that he's the fastest person ever, even faster than Superman. Like, there's so much more that he would be able to do because he does have that speed, that velocity.
Mm-hmm.
Just physics speaking, he would be able to kill pretty much anybody.
Which he won't. Just like Superman won't. Batman will. But, yeah. I don't know, I just thought that was great, though, that the fact that he was willing to kill himself multiple times just shows how much he just, I guess you could say doesn't care, but at the same time he does care, because he cares that he wants to just conquer everything. Like he said to Caitlin, he's like, I used to measure myself on how many speedsters I conquered or whatever, or how many speedsters I killed, and now I'm going to change it and measure myself based on how many Earths I conquer.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's willing to do that shows his lack of care for himself specifically, but then how much he actually cares to conquer this place, so like to complete his own goals in a sense.
Yep. So Cisco and Wells, two characters that I feel like they were there. Cisco really started getting his powers and became Vibe, and and some of the writers in Flash TV shows are comic book writers for DC.
And Jeff Johns comes in a lot and helps write and direct and do a bunch of stuff with it, which he actually has written a lot of Flash stuff. He's the creative director for DC or something like that. I can't remember. But he's really high up there in the DC, which is pretty nice.
So just like having that kind of influence will really help, at least guide the actors, or just really get really good creative ideas, and adapting comic book lore into all of this.
Yeah, and the fact that they actually stay true to most, like I say most because if they just stayed true just to all of like 100% of the source material, it would be a very boring show, because everybody would have seen and already know what's going to happen, and it wouldn't be very it wouldn't be very like suspenseful. But opposed to Arrow, which just constantly diverts and is just like going all over the place, it's nice to see that they know they're Flash. They know that they're a TV show based off of a comic, so they use the comic a lot. They stay true to it. They don't, like, obviously they're going to divert, but they don't do it in such drastic ways that just sort of like
don't make sense.
Yeah, they take away from the whole experience of this is the Flash.
And just Cisco and Wells, I mean, their banter back and forth all season was great. I mean, they're not necessarily comic relief, but they did. Cisco's always been one of the lighter, one of the funnier parts of the show, and just him being able to bounce off of cranky old Wells really, I think, really helped bring some light into this show.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but Wells, the guy who plays him, Tom Cavanaugh, I think is his name.
Cavanaugh, yeah. He's actually, generally before this, he was a very comedic actor. He was in the show Scrubs. He played JD's brother,
and he was always like all over the place, like just making random noise, like just being really really annoying.
Yeah.
And he's just a very funny dude. And I think for first season you never really saw the funny side to Wells. You just saw angry Eobard Thawne hating Barry Allen, and then this you see a dude who actually cares and wants to help.
And that's the thing though, it's because he was playing a completely different character than
Yeah.
who he was playing this season. So I think that probably would have been really fun for the actor being able to play two characters on this one really great show.
Mm-hmm. With that voice change though too. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like he starts whispering and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Harrison's a whisperer, I see.
So that kind of wraps up our discussion over Flash. If there's anything that you felt that we left out, want to go back and discuss, leave it down in the comments below. And we also kind of talked briefly about Arrow and how all the CW, DC shows are going to be affected in Barry's decision to go back and save his mother and kind of screw everything up. Yay!
Yeah!
So, if you have any theories or any ideas on what you think will be happening in Season 3, let us know. Hit us up on our Twitter. Follow us pretty much anywhere. Next week, we will be doing a video over X-Men Apocalypse, just kind of giving a review, kind of like what we did for Civil War and Flash this week. So we will talk to you guys next week.
Peace out, fam.